Good evening, and welcome to episode 37 of Nightmare Theater, an open book club for nightmares. You may notice that tonight, for the first time, I don't have my watermark here, and that's because it's the last episode, so I'm trying not to encourage anyone to send in nightmares this time. I'm going to talk more about why it's the last episode at the end of the episode, because I don't want to be a buzzkill for it. It's a little bit bittersweet, but I've got reasons that I'll explain at the end, and I think that the channel's not going anywhere, so you can count on stories to keep coming every Thursday. But without further ado, let's get into some of these nightmares from Reddit. So this is a post by a user named TrueCrimeDog007. The post is titled Horrible Throat-Slitting Nightmares. The post reads, Recently, within the last, I would say, 6 months, I've had 3 dreams about stabbing and slitting of throats. It always starts with me running away from someone. I'm sluggish and weak, and always wailing out for help. I can feel it in my chest like it's hard to breathe. I always try to run away, but never can. I usually recognize the person that's after me, and they never say anything or make any facial expressions except for a blank one. A few nights back, for example, this girl I've known for like 7 or 8 years was after me. She started slashing at me and got my forearms, and I screamed for her to stop. I couldn't run away. My feet felt like cement, but then I managed to get behind her and slit her throat. It was weird. Like it went really slow, and then all of a sudden there was blood everywhere. I wasn't happy about it, and I felt so bad that I did it, but it was my only way out. These nightmares scare me so much. Like, usually I can feel the pressure of being stabbed, and I also feel when I stab into someone. I read into them a little bit, and it stated that I may feel ignored or betrayed by someone, and that's true. My boyfriend left me last week, and then I was in the hospital for 4 days. Right, so she did her own research there. I'm assuming it's a she. Could be a guy, though. Pretty interesting. So, as we know here at Nightmare Theater, if we look at our interpretation chart, so being chased, of course, suggests that you're avoiding some confrontation in real life with another person or situation, and then the manner in which you flee may indicate that you avoid conflict in real life. So that's maybe applies more to being chased, and she knows the chaser in the dream, of course, is the ex-boyfriend, and then being attacked, which is a separate entry here, third from the bottom. You feel out of control or vulnerable in some aspect of your life, and the weapon used, the identity of the attacker, maybe clues to what you feel vulnerable about. So slightly different interpretation from what she found on her own with regards to the betrayal specifically. But, kind of interesting. This next post is by a user named Door is Door is Door. The post is titled, So I had a dream about a meteor attracted by sound. The post reads, So in the dream, I was just going to the shore, but I heard on a speaker that a meteor attracted by sound was close to the earth, and that we need to shut up. I was of course panicked, but I just followed the rule. I went home. On the way, I saw a park filled with noisy children. I said to every one of them to shut, but they didn't listen. I was, of course, even more panicked. Just then, I saw a dot in the sky. It was the end. I ran into my apartment. I locked the door and began to fear for my life. I heard a strange noise, and in the last second of the nightmare, I saw a giant spherical rock crushing my skull. That's interesting. I wonder if it shifted to third person right at the end of the nightmare. So all of a sudden, at the end of the nightmare, you're seeing yourself from a bird's eye view, or I guess from at least a distant view. Kind of interesting. So I can interpret this as an apocalypse nightmare, which, if you look second from the top, where natural disasters and weather is, an apocalypse dream can indicate that a big change is happening in your life. So I don't know what that could be. It's a bit of a short nightmare, and it's a bit lacking in detail, but I mean, the poster will have perhaps a better idea of what that might mean. This is a post by a user named Your Hot Uncle. The post is titled, "This one was by far the worst, and I need to talk about it this time. Please read." The post reads, "It started off in my apartment. I live on the second floor with my girlfriend. We were just laughing, having a good time, and playing with our cats. Some guy came to our door. He was very angry, saying something about him and my father having a disagreement. I told him I can't really do anything about it, and that I'm not going to sit here and have him threatening me. I sent him off and immediately called my dad and told him about what happened. The next day, my girlfriend and I were just hanging out again, and this time I heard climbing outside on the little rooftop outside our living room and the bedroom windows. I asked my girlfriend if she heard it too, and she said jokingly, 'What if it's someone with a gun?' Remembering the man who'd been there the day before, I took caution of telling her to go into the kitchen and stay there until I said it was okay. I then slowly moved the curtain and peeked out. As I got the curtain around the side of the windowsill, I saw the barrel of a gun pointed right where I was looking, and the man behind it. I immediately dropped to the ground in front of the couch, which was in front of the window, and he started firing through the window. Shots rang off, and glass was flying into the house, so I picked up and pulled the front of the couch over myself as added protection. I heard the gun click, so I pushed the couch off. I quickly got up and ran to the kitchen where my girlfriend was hiding. I grabbed her by the arm and rushed her into the bathroom. I told her to lay in the bathtub, which is cast iron. Her knees wouldn't fit because it's kind of a short run, and told her not to get up no matter what, even if she's shot in the knee. I locked and closed the door on my way out and went straight for the kitchen to grab a knife, and as I could hear what remained of our window being smashed in. I hid in a corner that leads to our living room to the kitchen, with my back against the wall and the knife in my right hand, blade pointing out from the bottom of my fist. As the man came around the corner, I swung hard and caught him in the chest. It hit hard but got caught on his ribs and didn't penetrate far. I then realized it wasn't the same man I had just seen, but instead one who looked similar to him, his brother. The brother also had a knife, blade pointing up from his fist. He swung back at me, and I caught the stab with my forearm, then returned another stab to his chest, again not puncturing very far. We traded a couple more stabs, all of which I blocked with my arm. Ooh. After the third stab from him, fourth one from me, the man came around the corner as well. He had the gun in his hand. The man's brother moved in to stab me again, but this time I grabbed his arm with my left and twisted him around so he was back towards me, and putting his own knife pointed into his chest, followed by my knife hand, past the left of his back, blade across his throat. I pulled him back into me and held him tightly so he couldn't escape. In that time, the man had pointed the gun at me, but now had his brother as a shield. I shouted at him to drop the gun or I would kill his brother. He did so. I then told him to walk backward away from it. He did so again. I talked the man to the door and followed, still holding his brother hostage. After we got downstairs, I took the brother's knife and pushed him forward, telling both to get out of here. They threatened me and told me I shouldn't have told my father. I told them that even if they had killed me, my dad would have ended them before the day was over. After they left, I ran upstairs and told my girlfriend to come out. I was bleeding heavily and the adrenaline was wearing off. I could distinctly feel where each stab on my arm was. They were very painful now. Not wanting to go to the authorities, as that might anger the men, I had my girlfriend call her mom to give me medical help. My arm was in searing pain, and I laid down in our bed while I waited. That's when I woke up. I could still feel the knife wound searing my arm with pain. Due to still feeling it, I thought it really happened. I screamed for my girlfriend immediately, and only a second later I realized there were no wounds or blood on my arm, just the pain. She awoke and asked if I'm okay. I told her I had a nightmare, and after quickly explaining it, let her go back to sleep. Very interesting. So, my first thought is that possibly you slept on your arm funny. Or maybe you rolled over onto your side, or you had it behind your back while you were asleep. And maybe you got pins and needles in it, and that's why you felt the pain, and that's why in the dream your brain made it so that you were getting stabbed in the arm. Another thought that I had that is kind of interesting is you definitely are not helpless in the dream. Like, you're taking on two guys by yourself. But I did kind of think when you were stabbing the man in the chest, but it wasn't going very far, I feel like that's almost the beginnings of a paralysis or being unable to move nightmare. So you feel stuck in some situation in real life, or there's something about yourself you're suppressing, or you feel like insecure about your ability to like perform under pressure or something like that. Although I would say that you seem to have a pretty good respect for your own ability to perform under pressure, because the nightmare ended well, for the most part, other than your arm. But just the fact that the knife isn't going through, like, I've had nightmares like that before where I'm in a fight and just my punches are not as effective as they should be, and that's like doubt in the back of your brain in your own like competence creeping into the dream. So I'd say that that applies to the stab wounds here as well. But other than that, I mean, I feel like you have a pretty clear idea of what this pertains to in the real world. So I might leave it at that. Hope you got something out of that interpretation. This is a post by a user named Harrysis. The post is titled Reoccurring Nightmare. The post reads, "Every time I sleep in the dark, I have a nightmare where I'm staying up late at night and the sun starts to rise. Then, from my window, I see my garden and a field behind it. This looks exactly like my real life. I left a water bottle on the windowsill. That's exactly what I'll see when I have this dream. Then, in the field, I see a semi-transparent, pale entity running around extremely fast. Then, another will join, and I start to back away, scared. They both stop. They turn slowly to look directly at me. I hide in my bed and Google what I saw. It always pops up as Nightcrawler or Night Stalker. But when I Google these terms, it seems to lead to other things, but they are all completely harmless. Then, the things find me, and this time they say something. You can do any spell to save yourself. Pray to any god to protect you. But the only thing that can save you is if we hit our knife on brain, or hay, or bone. Your god is not coming. It is just Nightcrawler. And then I get killed, and I wake up. These words are new to me, and I've never heard them talk before. They've been haunting me since I woke up. I want to go back to sleep, but whenever I try, I just picture them looming over me." I mean, the phrase that they say to you doesn't make perfect sense, but it's freakier almost because of that. And I'm kind of surprised that you actually immediately die. The fact that you don't describe how you die makes me think that that's not actually revealed in the dream. But yeah, if there's a nightmare, you can see like 6th from the bottom here on the interpretation chart. If you have a nightmare where there's death, especially your own death, that can indicate that there are some big changes coming up in your life and that you don't feel in control. So, I mean, if you have like a reoccurring nightmare, maybe it would make more sense that you just in general feel like you're not in control of your life. This is a post by a user named Dylan, Switzerland. The post is titled, "End of the World Dreams." The post reads, "For the past year or so, I've been having a lot of dreams that feel extremely real, to the point where I feel the pain and I wake up if I'm hit or stabbed in the dream. I keep having dreams about the United States being nuked or some type of massive natural disaster. The most recent one I've had was me, by myself at Walmart, and it was about 1 p.m. when suddenly the sky turned pitch black and there was so much thunder and lightning. But the sky was full of black clouds, so it looked really scary seeing the lightning and seeing the outline of the clouds. There was a loud voice coming from the sky. Everyone was screaming and running, and it started raining, but it was very hot outside. And then, suddenly, there was a massive bright light and a ton of heat, and then I was suddenly on a mountainside, and I saw a city in front of me, nuked. I could feel heat rush towards me and disintegrate me, but I was so scared in the dream, seeing everyone frenzy out, run, and scream." Unintentional bars there. Nice rhyme. Well, maybe it was intentional. So, in this case, we've got a couple things. So, first of all, you're dying. So, we can kind of say the same thing to you as we said to the last poster, which is that you could feel that there's big changes coming up in your life, or that you're very not in control of them. And then, secondly, we have kind of natural disasters, weather, and apocalypse all in one. So, second from the top, you're stressed or upset about something, could be anything. A storm indicates rage or turmoil, or a deep upset about something. And then again, apocalypse dreams indicate that a big change is happening in your life, which is consistent with you dying. So I would say that there's a big change happening in your life and you're upset about it or stressed about it. Like, that's the main interpretation. And I wonder, you can tell me whether or not that checks out, whether or not that proves to be true. But yeah, of course, these are just things from the internet. Alright, so this is a nightmare by a user on Reddit named NoPromotion3524. The post is titled, "Nightmare Where I Can't Turn On the Lights." The post reads, "The past 2 weeks, I've had a dream where I've fallen asleep and it felt as though I woke up, but when I'm awakened, I can barely see or function. I feel as if I'm being watched. My flashlight on my phone won't work. My brightness on my screen is off and won't come up. Nothing works. No switches, no outlets. It feels as though I'm incompetent. I force myself awake. Just now, after this occurred for the second time, after I was able to visibly, in my dream, walk myself out of the living room where I was in the early morning. I saw my parents leaving their room. They had a white light reflecting in their room, but they didn't see me on the couch, as if I was a light and wouldn't turn on. I'm desperate to know how to make this go away. It makes me so disconnected and discomforted in my own sleep." So, I would say that this is, like, you even say it here, it feels as though I'm incompetent. Even though you're not, that's not like the overt message of the nightmare. The fact that you're unable to turn on the lights, which is something that seems so easy, and then kind of at the end, you yourself are a light that won't turn on. I mean, I feel like it almost interprets itself, right? So I think that there's probably some area of your life where you feel like you're not able to have an impact, or the impact that you want to have, as well. Like in general, maybe you just feel incompetent, and I guess, like, yeah, you say at the end, I'm desperate to know how to make this go away. I think that you need to, like, identify the area where you feel incompetent, or just try to like learn a skill or something if it's just kind of in general you don't feel competent, and just get good at something, because that will improve your confidence, and I would imagine that the nightmares would go away. No guarantees, of course. This is a post by a user named dred118. The post is titled The Attack. The post reads, I live in rural Bavaria. When I need something from a store, I have to get in my car and drive to the city to get it. So that's what I do, early in the morning. I drive to the city closest to me. It's like a 15-20 minute drive. I park my car in the parking garage and make my way downtown by foot. There's a multinational festival downtown. People from all over the world are there. I enter the store, which has a big window front facing the marketplace, to grab whatever it is I need. While waiting in line to pay, I notice someone in a military-ish uniform carrying a machine gun, walking towards the festival. So I, having a military background, tell everyone in the store to go upstairs, stay away from the windows, etc., and go outside following this dude, wrestling him down, taking away his machine gun, and dragging him into another store so people can hold him down until the police arrive. Now, there's like 8 or 9 paths leading to the marketplace that has the festival, and how likely is it that this guy's working alone? So what I do is, I go around the corner of the town's hall, which has a balcony overlooking the marketplace, and an outside accessible staircase up to said balcony. Good thing is, it's early in the morning and the festival didn't start yet. No one's there yet. No one could get hurt. I get into position and see if there are more attackers. I'm sure there are. The amount varies from night to night. Sometimes it's only 2 or 3. Sometimes it's up to 8. One from every street leading to the marketplace. I open fire. This also varies. Sometimes I go unarmed. Sometimes I get hit myself. Sometimes I make it. Sometimes I die. Whenever I do get out alive, I flee. Flee from news reporters. Flee from all the attention I'd get. I'm kind of curious if the poster has PTSD. They mentioned that they were in a military background. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've seen combat, I guess, but I mean, this almost strikes as, you know, a PTSD nightmare from someone who's seen combat, right? Because it's kind of like just all these imagined scenarios, and one of the purposes of dreams and nightmares, well, nightmares in particular, is threat rehearsal. So your brain is trying to get you ready for a conflict, and if you've seen conflict, or even if you've just been, you know, preparing for conflict your whole life, you may have built up like a paranoia towards it happening. So yeah, I would say that this is just a classic case of like threat rehearsal, because you're from a military background. Like, you think that this kind of thing like could happen or is likely to happen, like in whatever circumstances you put yourself in, or it's like a PTSD nightmare and you're remembering a similar scenario. That's what I'd say about that one. This is a post by a user named Savrav16. The post is titled, Organ Donor Just Woke Me Up. The post reads, It started with what looked like a poorly drawn sketch on a weird fleshy table. The paper was stained brown and looked old, and the focus shifted to a guy trapped on a table. 2 people on his sides. He was panicked, had no hair, and was shaking and jerking. The paper was on his stomach. A lady was sitting off to the side. She said, "Let's begin the harvest." And they just started skinning him alive. He was screaming, and I felt sick. But what really got me was this creepy lady slithered up above his head, fingers dancing on his face, around his eyes. She said, "I want my eyes," and hers were bloodshot. The iris had no real color of its own, just veiny, and then they went to scoop out his eyes. The scream. I woke up immediately. I don't know if this has been my worst dream. I'm not looking for advice or anything, just a place to share. Well, I won't give advice then. Yeah, I mean, like, that this is a difficult one to even give advice on. Like, I have no idea what this is about other than, like, potentially various horror movies or, that type of thing. Uh, it also kind of reminded me of Naruto, where everything reminds me of Naruto, though. I love Naruto. Where, the Uchihas, like, take each other's eyes. Anyway. This is a post by a user named Kinetic Sand. The post is titled, "Watching a Guy Get Cooked Alive." The post reads, basically that. He wasn't screaming in pain. He was just trying to be positive and self-soothe, saying things like, "Well, this could be worse," insert nervous laughter here. You could tell he was terrified on the inside, and desperate attempts to mask it were really disturbing. At some point, the lady doing it took a tiny spatula and just spread his molten skin all over his face like salad dressing. She put over his eye first, and then he went silent, and that was that. Two sort of similar ones back to back. Although I guess getting cooked alive is a bit different from getting flayed and your skin harvested. I don't know what these ones are about, to be honest. Although I could actually interpret this as a cannibalism nightmare, because technically they're eating him. And a cannibalism nightmare, basically it just means that you have a notion that someone in a position of power is like abusing that power over someone else. So depending on who the actual characters are, second from the top, by the way, depending on who the actual characters are, like this could be like someone in your real life who you think maybe has like a power imbalanced relationship or something of that nature. And that can be, that's like part of why it's so disturbing. It's like a psychological element to it, to like the domination and the torture of the person. Yeah. This is a post by a user named AppropriateWay2773. The post is titled, "I really need some help on this one, please." The post reads, "When I was little, like around 10 to 14 years, I had the same claustrophobic nightmare over and over again, like 3 to 4 times a week. It stopped for a few years. Now I'm 18 years, and exactly the same nightmare came back for over 2 weeks now. Let me explain. I'm in a room, not small, not big. The room is fully closed doors and no windows, just a room. I am laying on the floor of the room. I feel really claustrophobic and am pacing on the floor. In the room, there is a big bell, like a big bell on a church, and every time the bell sounds, it starts a claustrophobic feeling that's getting worse and worse, and with every ring of the bell, I am starting to hyperventilate. When the panic attack is getting worse and worse, I can hear someone screaming. It's around that time I wake up. After the nightmare, I can hardly get to sleep. I don't know what to do." I mean, if you hadn't told me that you had this, 4 to 8 years ago, I would think it was a quarantine nightmare. But the fact that you had it recurring that time makes me think, 10 to 14, that sounds kind of like middle school years. And the bell in the room could represent like the bell that they ring at school, right? Even though it's a church bell. It could represent, a school bell ringing to like bring you back in from recess or whatever, right? So I think that it could be like maybe whatever your school life was like from ages 10 to 14, it could have made you feel trapped, and that's what's represented by the windowless, doorless room. And every time the bell rings, that indicates going back to school, right? So every time you have to go back to school, that like the panic increases. So yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good interpretation, but you can let me know whether or not that's completely wrong. But yeah, I feel pretty confident with that interpretation. This is a post by a user named Solid Mangus. The post is titled, Barn full of crows hanging from the ceiling, ready to poke my eyes out. The post reads, I have one nightmare my whole life, but I still remember it so vividly. Here's the dream. I was in a forest. It was dark and I could barely see anything. I traveled deeper inside the forest until I found an area which was clear of trees and moonlight was illuminating it. Middle of that area was a red barn with its door open. I went inside. It was dark. Across the barn I could see a window that was boarded with planks. From the cracks it let the moonlight through, so I walked near that window. When I reached the window, the door, which I entered, closed, and suddenly a lot of crows, snared in a string, started falling down from the ceiling to my eye level, and they tried eagerly to poke my eyes out with their beaks. The crows had no eyes, and blood was dripping from their eye sockets to the ground. I could hear the blood dripping, sounded very clear. I woke up and my heart was beating fast. I was feeling very anxious. I still heard the dripping sound of blood right next to my ear, and I was too scared to open my eyes. I felt that there was something evil without eyes wanting me to open my eyes so that it could pluck my eyes out. I mustered enough courage, and when I opened my eyes, the sound of dripping stopped. What was crazy about that sound of dripping was the fact that I also felt something was dripping on my pillow, but I checked and nothing was there, not even wet. So actually the whole first part, like the actual nightmare, kind of reminds me of the opening of the most recent Resident Evil game, Village, I think it's called, because you're walking around in a forest and then you have all those birds that are just like hung in snares that are cawing, right? Yeah, I don't know if you've played that game or if you've seen it played, but that might be an explanation for that. I mean, it's very vivid imagery. I like the moonlight coming through the barn too. Difficult to interpret other than with that game, but the second part of it, where you wake up and you hear the blood and you feel an evil presence, that could actually be sleep paralysis. So not everyone has the visual sleep paralysis demon hypnagogic hallucinations. Some people have auditory hallucinations, and that could be something that you are experiencing. So it could be that, because you had the nightmare, your brain is like afraid of it in real life, of course, so it's projecting the dream onto reality still. And then it kind of goes away after some time. That's a possibility. I don't know whether or not you're aware you have sleep paralysis, but something to think about. This is a post by a user named Grisham Law. The post is titled, Can't Move After This One. The post reads, I'm in the neighborhood where I grew up. I'm in the middle of the street. On one of the lawns, someone I know pulls down a mask over their face and pulls out a long knife. That person chases me. I wake up in the complete darkness of my room. I have not moved since. Terrified. This is a very short one, but I included it because it's a classic example of a being chased nightmare. So they were reluctant to say who this person is, but it did sound like they knew them in real life. So basically, it suggests that you're avoiding a confrontation in real life with this person. Simple as that. The long knife, kind of irrelevant as long as they're not attacking you. If they're attacking you, then the interpretation would change slightly. Like by attacking, I mean actually like hitting you with it, but I don't think they are. So yeah, it's just whoever this person is, you're probably avoiding some confrontation with them. All right, now we've got a longer one. We do have one viewer submission, by the way, which is a nice way to end Nightmare Theater at the end after I get through these Reddit nightmares. This is a post by a user named HotDouble9415. The post is titled, She's Back. The post reads, So I'm an experienced lucid dreamer. I used to lucid dream every night until about 6 or 7 months ago when I had a string of lucid nightmares. For better or for worse, I don't remember most of these nightmares that well, but I do remember not being able to sleep for days on end because of them. For whatever reason, these nightmares seem to have scared the ability to lucid dream out of me, and I haven't been fully lucid since. Fast forward to about a week ago, I find myself having a strangely vivid dream. Normally, my dreams, even lucid ones, will fade from my memory pretty quickly, but I can still remember most details from this dream even several months later. The dream starts in a forest where I'm greeted by a woman. She tells me that if I agree to go with her, she will give me unspeakable power. I agree to go with her, and the scenery seems to melt into her. No, sorry, I misread that. The scenery seems to melt into that of the inside of a train. Okay, so it goes from a forest to a train. The woman stands across from the cart from me and repeats her offer, this time requesting that I follow her to take my brother as well. Suddenly, I'm fully aware that this is a dream. I refuse her offer, this time, which seems to really upset her. When she asks why I changed my mind, I tell her, because you're not real. The lights in the train go out. My ears are filled with the sound of the train coming to a sudden stop, mixed with what I can only describe as a vaguely inhuman scream. The woman disappears from my sight and, just as fast, reappears with her face only inches from mine. The only light now is the soft blue glow seeming to come from my chest. From this light, I can see the woman's face, now contorted into a psychotic grin. Her eyes turn completely black. She holds a knife to my throat, and I am frozen in place. I am completely lucid at this point, but I can't wake up or make anything happen. I can't even move. She tells me, then bleed if you're real. Suddenly, I wake up in a cold sweat, gripping my throat. Those last words have echoed through my head every day since, but since then, I haven't seen any signs of the woman, and I haven't really had any nightmares this week. This week, I've been experiencing another string of vivid nightmares. Every night, I've experienced a nightmare centered around a demonic possession. I didn't really think much of them, and I've tried my best to forget them. That was until 2 nights ago. I'm in a forest where I met the woman again. A little boy wearing a conductor hat stands in front of me. He reaches out his hand, and I take it. He begins leading me through the forest. I ask him, "Where are you taking me?" To which he responds, "She wants to show you something." We reach a clearing, and the boy lets go of my hand. He steps into the middle of the clearing and gives me a strange look, as if he was trying to call out for help. Suddenly, he begins levitating with his arms outstretched. He catches fire and starts screaming. At this point, after experiencing similar events the previous 5 nights, I'm pretty much unfazed by this. That is, until I see the woman standing on the other side of the clearing. The nightmare ends abruptly, and the words, "Bleed if you're real," bounce around my head again as I get my bearings and turn on the light. It's been 2 nights, and I haven't had another nightmare since. It's been really hard to fall asleep, though. I feel uneasy, like something is coming. That was so good. That was such a scary nightmare. Yeah, I mean, I've said it before on this show, lucid nightmares are often scarier than real nightmares, even though you know it's a nightmare, and it's for this reason. Because the fact that you know it's a nightmare and you can't get out of it, and there's a malicious entity that's like badgering you, it breaks the fourth wall almost. It's no longer a story. Now you're actually trapped in a nightmare, and there's somebody telling you bleed if you're real, you know, in this case. So, like, yeah, it's just a whole, you're aware that it's real, and you're also aware that the danger is real in a sense, you know what I mean? Because you're trapped in the nightmare. Anyway, I'm kind of going in circles here, but I think you get my point. Yeah, I mean, I'd be really interested to see how this plays out over time. Another thought I had is because she was asking for your brother when she was trying to make this deal with you, and I'm not sure whether or not the little boy possibly represents your brother, although you don't seem like emotionally attached to him and you don't describe him as being your brother. But I wonder if this is maybe like some other child that she, you know, got to take her deal or something like that. Like, I don't know, I'm just speculating, but really scary nightmare. I enjoyed reading that. This is a post by a user named Marina Rosabelle. The post is titled, "I chased myself." The post reads, "I had a nightmare where I was in an unknown, abandoned place with a bunch of unknown people. We split up while exploring, and I wandered the area. I was alone. I was alone until I felt something behind me. It was a tall figure with blood on their clothes. Scared, I ran away. I ran into some of the unknown people and saw a hole leading into the basement of a building. I jumped into the hole and landed in a hallway with a room at the end. The figure was catching up, so I went inside the room and hid. They closed the door, leaving me no way to escape. I tried to crawl out of the spot to open the door, but the figure walked in front of me. I saw their face. It was me. The other me pulled out a knife made of glass, picked me up, cupped my face, and slowly began to carve out my cheeks. I felt the cold knife going through my skin and cheek muscles. I pulled out the knife by grabbing the other me's arm. I broke the glass knife. They stared at me angrily. The dream ended with a thud sound, which simply implied that I was killed, not by blood loss or anything, but I was hit with a heavy object by the other me." So this is really interesting. I really wanted to read this one because it's an imposter nightmare, but the imposter's you. I don't think I've ever read one like this. So imposters, second from the bottom. An imposter nightmare can indicate that you suspect that a person in your real life is untrustworthy or not who they appear to be. It can be a warning to protect yourself, your information, or your psychological space. Though that's it. So, but like, how do you think that you're not who you appear to be? Maybe that means you think that you're being fake in some social situation, and you're kind of like deep down resenting yourself for being fake rather than, you know, just acting how you want to act, something like that. How else could we interpret this? Wanting to protect yourself, your information, or your psychological space. Yeah, I mean, maybe you feel like you kind of have a tendency to self-sabotage. That could be another thing. The fact that it's trying to steal your face, too, just adds another level of imposter to it. If it already looks like you, why does it need your face? I don't know. It's a creepy thought, though. Rather than... Nothing's coming to mind, so I should probably move along, but... Yeah, I hope you got something out of that interpretation, anyway. This last post from Reddit is by Accident Capable 9181. The post is titled, "Old Nightmare That Still Haunts Me." The post reads, "Hey everyone, I have this old nightmare that still resonates with me to this day. I'm in my early 30s, but this happened maybe when I was 16. A little bit of background info first. I used to be deathly afraid of demonic children in horror media, dolls and any other childlike stuff with horror in it." Okay, so here's the nightmare. Oh, not yet, sorry. "I learned to lucid dream in 6th grade. I learned how to wake myself up from nightmares. The trick always works, though sometimes not on the first try. Always on the second try, if not on the first try. The trick consists of me shutting my eyes super tight until I wake up. This happens in real life as well, and I suppose the slight pain of shutting my eyes that tight wakes me up. On to the actual dream. Here we go. I don't remember the events that led up to this moment in the dream, but this is all I remember, and it's very vivid. A 10-year-old girl in a nightgown is standing in my kitchen. I don't know her, but she's possessed by a demon. I immediately try to dip out, but the eye trick doesn't work. I try it again. It fails. She's looking at me like she knows I'm trying to escape and can't. I try this at least 5 times to no avail. She then switches to her normal self and tells me the only way to escape is to kill her. I don't want to do this. Even more now, because I know there's still a sentient person under the possession. I tell her I can't, even though there's a large kitchen knife in my hand now. The demon decides to attack, and I'm forced to stab her straight in the abdomen. I remember the feeling of the knife going into her. I stab her 4 more times, and by this point I'm in tears. I feel like I really just killed someone. Since then, I have tried to wake up, since then I've tried to do the wake-up trick, and it's back to working 99% of the time. I don't know what happened that night, or why. This was an isolated incident, and I haven't had anything like it happen since then. Has anyone else had a nightmare like this? It just seemed so real. So, I mean, yeah, another case of, what's it called? So, there was a term for it that I did like an episode on it where I talked about lucid dream complications. I'm not sure which episode this was, but this is one of the things, and this applies to Nightmare number 13 by a Hot Double that I just read previously as well. So they're experiencing a nightmare that's kind of made more intense by the fact that the characters or the evil entities in the nightmare are aware that you are aware that you're lucid dreaming. Well, yeah, you were aware that you're lucid dreaming because you tried the trick. Yeah, so yeah, that kind of, it breaks the fourth wall and it adds a level of realism to it because you are literally trapped within your own mind. It's not part of the dream, like you're literally trapped in your own mind. So yeah, I mean, now the significance of this person and why it works 99% of the time, I'm not sure. Maybe it was just something about her that scared you so much, or maybe you're so afraid of demonic possession in general that your brain believes that you would not have the power to overcome them even in lucidity. That's what I think. So your brain subconsciously believes that your lucidity is not more powerful than this case, which is like a demonic possession. Kind of an interesting thought, and you did mention that's one of your greatest fears. Really interesting. In the chat, maybe they feel they have to become other than themselves in a social context. Is that referring to Marina Rosabelle's nightmare? Chased myself. Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind as well. I think that's probably the most likely explanation. So, I'm very pleased that on this final Nightmare Theater we have a viewer submission. And it's someone who I've read from before, of course, but this is an email from Purple Inoki. On Reddit, I think that their username is I am God Me. The post, or the email, is titled, My Nightmare. It reads, Unlike past nightmares, I didn't realize mid-dream that it was a nightmare. I found myself with the ability to see 3 seconds into the future. Throughout the dream, I used this ability in my daily life, at school, talking to people, and playing games. It turns to night, and I message my friend when I see myself unplug a phone charger. I think to myself, why do I keep following this future? So I go against it. I didn't do exactly what I was supposed to do. Suddenly, things turn. as if time shuddered and stopped. I could no longer interact with my phone or get any appliances. The walls began to go loopy, and red lights start resonating from them, beating like a heart. I get up and start to leave my room, and everything begins to fall apart, falling into a dark abyss. It was like I was being punished for going against time and the universe. I move and stumble into my parents' bedroom, where there is almost a fog of darkness. I look around, and in the corner I see the figure of my mother, with smoke pouring from above. I look at her, starting from the legs, making my way halfway up her face. Then I see she's holding an iron to her face, melting her skin, a smile on her face, and her eyes lifeless. With that, I woke up. Dude, I have actual goosebumps. That is so scary. Like, that's such a fascinating concept as well, just like the 3-second into the future thing. Oh my god. You know, when you first described your mother into the room and the smoke, I just imagined her like floating there with smoke coming out of her eyes and her mouth, and actually what you had was like even scarier than what I imagined, holding an iron to her face. Yeah, that's so fascinating. It's like a glitch in the Matrix almost. Like you just kind of did something. It's like a bug, you know, in the code of the game. That's really interesting. I mean, now if I were to like try to interpret what does this mean, I mean, maybe you just feel like there's a path set out before you and you have to stay on it, stick to it. My chat disconnected. I hope I'm not losing connection. Anyway, it says I have excellent connection, so it should be okay. Sorry, but yeah, I wonder what that could mean. Other than yeah, sorry, you have like a path set out before you, and that it's just kind of like you feel like you have to stay on that path no matter what, and you're terrified of what might happen if you fall off it. There's a Nick Cage movie about this. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much for sending me that purple Inuki. Alright, so let me talk to you about the future of this channel. So let me move to the middle. So I've been doing Nightmare Theater since like the second week of October, and it's been a blast. So I'll just talk openly about kind of like my YouTube strategy, because I do want to grow on YouTube. Basically, when I started this channel, like this is primarily a short horror story channel, because I write all my own stories. Every story on my channel is mine, right? And I thought, well, I would like to produce more content like every week. So I thought, okay, well, I don't think I can write 2 stories a week. That's like quite a big ask. So I thought, how about I do a live stream, and it can be like interactive with the audience. Oh, I know what's something that everybody has that's scary: nightmares, right? So I was like, okay, cool. So like people can like share their nightmares, and it can be a good back and forth like built between the community. Unfortunately, what ended up happening is it sort of became 2 separate audiences, and I know some people who watch Nightmare Theater also watch the videos, but I think it's a small minority. And also a lot of the people whose nightmares I read, they do subscribe, and I appreciate that, but then they also stop watching the videos, which actually hurts you in the algorithm. Like the algorithm on YouTube wants like the highest proportion of your subscribers as possible to be watching. So if I have an audience that likes Nightmare Theater and an audience that likes the stories, then I'm actually shooting myself in the foot and doing more work to shoot myself in the foot. Now, I mean, I'm saying this with a heavy heart because I did, in the chat, sad to see Nightmare Theater go. Like, I feel that way as well. Like, I really do enjoy doing this. But ultimately, I feel like it's a bad YouTube strategy. And there are other things that I'd like to try with my weekly videos. Now, it says final episode. I may bring Nightmare Theater back in the future. Maybe if I've grown significantly more and there is like an interest for that type of interaction. I feel like there's not a huge interest for that right now. But yeah, a couple possibilities for bringing it back in the future include maybe on a different channel. I thought about doing that for a while, but the thing is that I'm not as passionate about this. Like, I feel like I could keep doing Nightmare Theater and make it like a really great podcast, but I'm not as passionate about it as I am about doing the stories. So, you know, I just feel like I don't want to be like dragging my feet to do it, right? Like, it's fun because it's part of this channel. And then I was also thinking in the future I could do maybe live streams, but without actually saving the VOD. So I could still do Nightmare Theater, but if you miss it, you miss it, basically. Like, you can't see it again. But I know that that's also something that doesn't really make sense to do if I don't have a lot of people that want to watch it. So it doesn't make sense. And another thing that kind of depresses me is every time I upload a Nightmare Theater, I usually lose a couple subscribers the next day, which is kind of like, ugh. It's like I have a net negative after a Nightmare Theater. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, this channel will always be about the stories I write, and they'll usually be scary, and they'll always be dark. I can promise you that. And I'm not giving up on the channel by any means. In fact, I plan to go even harder on it in a way, or change my strategy a bit. So this is another thing I wanted to talk about. So I've been doing these stories where I kind of take a folklore monster and I, just do a little story about that. And I've been doing this because it's again, YouTube strategy. Like, I can write about anything, right? But if I write about, some creature that I made up, then no one will find that in search, right? Because you can't rank a tag if it's just pure creativity. So yeah, I've been like just kind of limiting my creativity to like, here's a monster here, monster there. Oh, I thought I was lagging out for a second. Yeah, but I think that I can write way scarier stuff. Okay, so that's kind of the plan. So I'll tell you what my videos are going to be. So this Thursday it's going to be the Gorgon, which was a request. After that it's going to be the Yeti, which I'm going to make a part 3 of Bigfoot, which I've wanted to do for a while. And then I'm going to try this new series, which is not going to be folklore or monsters. It's going to be Try to Fall Asleep Challenge. And the plan is to have people actually try to take it seriously. And these videos will probably be a bit shorter, and they're going to be written literally with the intention to scare the shit out of you. Like, I'm going to be like trying as hard as I can to actually make you not fall asleep after you listen to them. So yeah, I think that I can do like a lot scarier, and they're supposed to be disturbing and unsettling, while still being, removed from reality to a degree. So I'm really excited for that. And yeah, I've also been working on a book. This has nothing to do with the channel. Well, other than that, I do writing, and if you're interested in the book, that'll be out probably in October is what I'm hoping for, but there'll be more about that in the near future. And yeah, so I almost want to like step up the quality of the content on the channel. I'm just being like full transparent here. So yeah, I think that by doing these like super scary stories, I don't know, we'll try it out. We'll see how people like it. Maybe I'll go back to the folklore monsters, although I've done like a lot of folklore monsters, so we'll see. I want to keep, evolving and growing. That's really it. And I appreciate everyone's support. By the way, we hit like 400 subscribers this week or the last week. Yeah, I appreciate all the comments on my videos. Like, genuinely, I literally have this folder in my computer of comments that sustain me, and there's like 21 in there, like whenever it's a really nice comment. So yeah, keep those coming. I really appreciate them. And that's all for Nightmare Theater for the time being. Maybe in the far future we can dream of it. We can have nightmares about it when I bring it back. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone's support this past 10 months, I guess it's been, that I've been going hard on YouTube. I've had this channel for 7 years. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I hope you enjoyed tonight's stream, and I hope you stick around with me in the future. Should be a lot of good stuff coming. And until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.